Welcome in, frenemies. This week I am your host, Sean. I brought Tim along here to sub in. Chris and Ryan had some scheduling conflicts, so this is who you got this week.
Settle for it.
All right, and for our shout out here, we're going to shout out to Ben Meckes. We've shouted out to him before, but he's doesn't know much about football, but is jumping in the Instagram start-sit chats with just ridiculous questions that I have to think about. Like, I think his last one was like, start Matthew McConaughey or... I can't even think of his name. Samuel L. Jackson in some type of movie scenario, and I was like, I have no idea how to answer that question. But thank you for at least getting us the extra comments to get us further along. All right, let's talk a little bit about the talk of the town here. So what's the news that matters and, some of the injuries that we had come up. We have our injury expert on today. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about the Mack situation. I know that's somebody that's on one of your teams.
Yeah,
and so
that one hurts a little bit extra. He was on his way to a pretty stellar game, 16 points by the start of the third quarter or something like that. And
at least he exited with a little fantasy pointage.
He left me well, so that was nice of him. But yeah, so he ended up getting a hand specialist and did get surgery. Typically with that, you are out, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
The challenge with this one in particular is that it was his dominant or ball-carrying hand.
Yeah.
People like to slap at hands and try to, cause fumbles and whatnot. So I am questionable whether or not we'll see him back.
Okay.
For fantasy relevance purposes, maybe for them if they sneak into the playoffs, he'll play again, but. With it being week 12 this week,
yep.
I think we only got another 4 weeks left of fantasy football, and I think that is going to be right in the window of when he's trying to get back onto the field, if at all. So
yeah. So and then just to talk about the fantasy part of it, I know waivers ran today, and the big thing was who do you pick up in that Colts backfield? There was Nyheim Hines. Personally, he's probably, for me, the safest pickup. He's going to probably inherit a little bit of more carries, but then he's also the passing down back, so he's safe in that regard. And then it's really murky because Jordan Wilkins was hurt last week, which is why Jonathan Williams is kind of who everybody wanted to pick up. But he's now practicing and may even play this Thursday. Yeah. So,
and I agree with that assessment that Hines is probably the better of the three. He's shown, even with Mack, soaking up carries, that he's still relevant in the offense. And when Mack went out last year, he was out for a chunk of time last year. Hines really stepped in and had a couple good games. And I only see his role kind of growing more so than what we saw out of Jordan Wilkins and whoever else that was.
Yeah, I think you're going to need, unfortunately, these 2 weeks to really evaluate how those first down running back reps get distributed. I've kind of gone back and forth on whether it's going to be Wilkins because Wilkins was the starter all year, and then they promoted Jonathan Williams from the market squad, and he had a good game. So they may just take the hot hand and go with Jonathan Williams.
The good thing is that offensive line is super good.
Yeah.
But if you looked at Marlon Mack's productivity, he wasn't super stellar. I mean, he was the only reason he was a quality running back was because of his volume. He wasn't ultra efficient, so if one of these two guys is able to become more efficient than Mack was, he could really step up. But I think it's going to be really murky in that situation. It's going to be hard to kind of weed out who you want to start there. So.
And then I also wanted to bring up Bo Scarborough. That was quite a surprise on Sunday. I was watching the games, and I was like, I had held on to Ty Johnson in another league, and it was just painful. Oh well, I guess they don't care about Ty Johnson anymore. They had Bo Scarborough, and it kind of looks like he's going to be the guy the rest of the season. I don't think it's a super valuable role. I think it's more of a LeGarrette Blount type of thing, where you're going to just get those goal line touches, which if Stafford ends up coming back, and Driscoll's shown that he can move the ball, so I think that he's a startable guy, but he's not going to win you weeks. He's just going to kind of be that fill-in for the bye weeks and stuff like that. And then also, just tomorrow's Thursday night, so we want to bring up a few of these injuries. T.Y., I guess, is potentially coming back.
So they didn't have an official injury report today or practice, but he would have been a participant in practice, which is better than he was at any point last week.
Okay.
They refused to rule him out, and part of the reason why I bring him up, and the other side of it, we'll talk about Will Fuller here in a second, but with T.Y. Hilton, I think if he does come back, he immediately is on that receiver 2 line. I think for him, he's been so dominant, and specifically against the Texans, and the Texans are kind of banged up right now in their secondary. I think he immediately can kind of come in, even if he's not 100%, he's shown that he can be good.
Yeah.
So Will Fuller on the other side makes me a little bit more concerned. Anytime you're coming back from a hamstring, man, it takes one bad play, and it's just hard to trust those guys coming back.
I believe this is a tweak of the original hamstring, right? So he's already shown that he's re-aggravating.
Yeah, and so for those guys, Another one I would think of is Adam Thielen. They come back in, they're trying to push to get back in, and then, it just takes one play, and then they're done for the game. And so I usually caution people just to kind of hold back a little bit of hope, make sure he gets. I like to see a full week of practice, much less a short week like this coming in. After not doing anything the week before, I'm kind of concerned. I wouldn't start Fuller this week. If T.Y. Hilton plays, I would.
That's kind of the thing that I've gone to with the hamstrings. Like, not only do I want to see the week of practice, I want to see a week of them play. You need to see a full week of them get through that game and not retweak that hamstring.
Exactly, yep.
So, and then obviously if he's out, then maybe Stills can be somebody you throw in there in the flex, although it's been kind of rough. I have him in a couple leagues, and you think he's going to kind of take that role, but if they're just not using him really.
I mean, we could take a second and just talk about how inept the Houston offense looked last week.
I know.
It was kind of surprising. I didn't really see that coming.
I think that... what's his name? Watson is going to bounce back this week. He's kind of done that all year. Yep. He's had a bad game, and then he's just kind of bolted back up to the top of the rankings. So I think they get it on track, but it's Thursday night, so you just never know what the heck's going to happen on a Thursday night. So.
Yeah, unpredictable.
All right, so let's go to our party question.
Ian, would you like to go to a party in my pants?
No, Brick.
All right, let's go.
All right, party question this week. I got a little off-the-wall type of one here. I'm running out of opportunities to come up with what the heck I want to ask. So
there's an app for that.
You're getting a weird... yeah, I know. That's where we first found it. But so we're going to do what breed of dog would you be? I'll kick it off to you, Tim, to go first.
So you guys will, if you guys know us at all, you'll find this to be very unoriginal. But I think it fits. And they say that dogs take on the personality of their owners.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of reverse in there as well, that people will take on a little bit of personality of their dog as well. So I have a German Shepherd. I truly believe that I, in my soul, am also a German Shepherd. Let me defend myself here. I am, if you know me well, I'm a pretty loyal friend, I would say. But it takes me a little while to warm up to you.
I mean, you're here today.
I'm here today, a friend in need. So it takes a little while to warm up to me. Once you are my friend, though, I'm all for it, all loyal, 100% committed. Can be a little protective. It can be a little abrasive at times, but you get me in my right setting, and it's a good time for everybody. So, I think I'm a German Shepherd. You meet my dog. My dog is ridiculous. I understand that I am also ridiculous at times. So, I think it's a good fit.
All right, and then mine, like you said, we're not being very original, but I have a black lab, and a Labrador Retriever, I think, is the breed of dog that I would be for sure. They're just somebody that always wants, or dogs that always want to be around people. That's me. I just want to be around people all the time. I'm not that introvert that goes and needs his alone time. I don't need any of that.
Yep.
And then just as far as how sports go, I feel like I'm kind of athletic, and they're pretty athletic dogs. And then the other thing is, they just go until they drop, and that's how I am with sports. I'll go out and play Frisbee, and it's just I'll fall over before I don't run for that Frisbee. So
exactly, yep. I get a little fixated myself. So
yeah, exactly. All right, and then let's jump into the fantasy Tinder.
Hey, how you doing?
So we didn't get to hear Chris impersonate Joey there. I'm sure you guys are missing that part of the
best part of the segment every time.
All right, so Fantasy Tinder. This is our start sit segment where we give you guys some flex opportunities here. So I know I'm getting hit hard on this bye week. The Vikings and the Chiefs, that's quite a few fantasy players you're going to be missing. And so these are just kind of some guys who are on the cusp that we think you can either start or we think you should sit them down. So I'll kick it off here. Kareem Hunt is my start. I'm going to swipe right on Kareem Hunt. He's playing Miami. I could probably stop there, but I will go into the fact that he has had 17 targets in his first 2 games back. So I think he's a safe play to where he is now the pass catching back in that backfield. It looks like the Browns have kind of started to get that offense going a little bit. And then again, he's playing Miami. So
he's such a dynamic player too. But my question for you is this. Is he still a start in a non-PPR league?
I think you can start him because I think Miami's defense is so bad that with that many opportunities and the talent that he has, he's going to break one. I don't think there's no way that he's not going to have a 20 to 30 yard run in this game. So I think that also he may be the late back that they use to run the clock out if they do want to save Chubb. And they're probably going to dominate the Dolphins like everyone has. So that's kind of my start this week. And then for my sit, I'm going to swipe left on Brian Hill. So this may seem a little obvious because it was a rough week.
That hurt.
But that's the thing. It hurt really bad, and people spent a lot of money on him. So they're probably pretty devoted to him and like, well, that was 1 week. I should, throw him back in there. Devontae Freeman's going to be out again, most likely. And I think that this is not the week to do that because he's playing Tampa Bay, who on the surface, they seem like a bad defense, but their run defense is second in the league. So I'm afraid to start him. They're still having that committee. He didn't get a giant workload. They're going to bring in other guys to take some carries, and he just didn't look very good. He averaged 2 yards a carry.
He did have a touchdown that got called back, but still, you look at his yards per carry, 2 yards a carry is awful, and then they gave up on him on the goal line. And so that was pretty disappointing, I think, as a whole. A lot of people did break the bank for him to get him on waivers, unless you had some foresight like I did.
Yeah, if you're in a really tough spot, I think you can put him in with that touchdown upside, but that's, to me, what you're hoping for. The
volume should still be there, and he may be involved in the pass game more so than the other running backs. But again, I think it's just going to be hard to trust that. Especially with the prolific pass game that Atlanta potentially could have against the Tampa Bay. I don't see the need for them to run the ball
exactly.
So much,
when you can do what you can against Tampa Bay's secondary, you don't need to run the ball.
Yep. All right. So I'll swipe right on Darius Geis. All right. So hear me out on this. He could be awful. All right, so I understand that a lot of those points from last week...
I was going to push this bell over here, but you're just going to make my argument for me, apparently.
Well, I understand the risk involved in this, but I'm trying to reach out there a little bit. I kind of have to buy into him for my own selfish reasons, but I see the upside here in this matchup. He got probably 75% of his points on one play last week.
Yep. I'm glad you're aware of that.
Yeah. But he's going against Detroit, who's been notoriously bad against the run this year. However, the last few weeks they have been much improved. But I do think, what do they have to lose by showcasing this guy after, a year and a half of injury? I think they're just going to hand him the ball. If nothing else, they'll get him involved on third downs. I think Chris Thompson's still out. And Adrian Peterson has been Adrian Peterson of the later years. He's been fine. He's been serviceable, but he's not anything dynamic. So I think Darius Geis is just a little bit more dynamic. And what does the franchise have to lose by at least seeing what they have in this running back?
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. They're at a point now where they just need to find out what this guy is and if they need to move on to a new running back. So because AP's not the answer.
If you don't like that one, I have another one for you. Okay. So I have Jalen Samuels. Again, I'm a homer. I'm a Pittsburgh fan. I think even if Connors decides that he wants to try to tough it out and play, I don't think he's reliable at this point with his shoulder injury. You saw he's a hard physical running back.
And it's just one hit on that shoulder.
He lowers that boom a lot on defenders, and it was one hit last week where he lowered into it, and he's like, I can't go anymore. So I think Samuels will be involved. You've seen what he can do in the pass game.
He's Mason Rudolph's best friend.
Yeah. He'll get 10 targets again, and I don't expect this to be a super high-scoring game, but I do think Samuels will get his opportunities. So
okay, what about some sits for us?
Sits. This one hurts me a little bit. I'm sitting David Montgomery if I have the option. A lot of people drafted him as an RB2, so you're still kind of hoping that he eventually will at least get into the flex position, but I think it's just hard to rely on that. The Bears' offense has been so bad.
So bad and unpredictable. Like, what
Tariq
is Nagy
Cohen
doing?
Still leeches
week
carries.
to week. We don't know.
Yeah, he's not as creative in his offense as he was a year ago, and so it's just hard to trust that. And the Giants are kind of sneaky good against the run as well. And again, I see Chicago passing the ball effectively against them, so I just don't know how necessary it will be to establish the run.
Yeah.
And then another one, I like to do twos. I don't know why. I'm sorry. Sony Michel is another one I like to swipe left on. If I'm going to start a Patriot running back this week, it'd be James White just for the pass reliability. And Sony Michel's been really ineffective without touchdowns the last couple of weeks, so I don't trust that.
Well, and Dallas has just been a really good defense, so that's not a matchup you really want to go in on. I predict that to be a lower scoring game, so I'll go ahead and move to I'm actually going to start with my sit since we're talking about that game. For wide receivers, Randall Cobb. He's strung together like 2 really good weeks here. You're probably thinking, I can throw him in there, but I would not. New England's defense, as we've said before, is legit. They give up the least amount of points to wide receivers, And like I was saying, I can see this game just being a dogfight where, it's kind of similar to that Philly game was last week, where you could be looking at a 17-14 game or something like that. And if he doesn't get a touchdown for you, you're going to be disappointed. And New England is, trying to get back on track. So I would stay away from Cobb. Gallup's another one that you can
borderline what receiver too. So even with Amari Cooper lining up on, I'm blanking now, on the corner for New England.
Oh yeah. I'll think of it. Keep going.
Yeah. So he gets shut down there. Even with the uptick in targets, you think for Gallup still shy away from him this week?
Yeah, I mean the only caveat is that Amari Cooper may not play. He's kind of been up and down. He's been dealing with this. I think it's a knee injury that he's been coming off the field for. He didn't play many percentage of snaps last week, but still, their defense is just so good that I don't think there's going to be a lot of success for Dak. I mean, Dak's looked great, but I don't know. I'm not projecting the Cowboys to have this big point total at the end. I think they're going to try to win with Ezekiel Elliott, slow the pace down, and this is just going to be one of those grinder games that I don't think are good for fantasy.
Yep. So who do you swipe right?
All right. So my start, in going in opposite order here, is Tyrell Williams. So this is a selfish play, as Tim would say. I have him in my league, our league that we are in together. And I just think he's a great option this week. He's playing the Jets. They're 30th against wide receivers. The Oakland offense has been rolling pretty well. They've kind of been a surprise of the season here. I did not expect Oakland to be this good. He's got a couple of good matchups in a row here, actually. I think you can kind of continue to play him. He's got Kansas City next week, probably in a high-scoring game. So Tyrell Williams is somebody I picked up off the waiver wire a few weeks ago that I think you can just kind of throw into that flex, and he's got high upside in this offense.
Just a side note, just imagine what could have been with AB in that offense.
It's pretty insane.
Isn't that a little painful? Like, as a Steeler fan, it's really sad to see where AB's gone. But imagine that offense with AB in it.
I know.
Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs and a speedy Tyrell Williams as your receiver too would have been pretty outstanding. So.
I know. It's something I have a few times this season stopped to think about. How are the Raiders this good? And then go, they could have had Antonio Brown. Who knows what they could be doing right now.
And that offense would change dramatically with him in it. So,
all right, so give us some wide receivers here, Tim.
Yeah, so one of my favorite starts this week is Allen Robinson against the Giants. Another one of those receivers who's been up and down. He predictably had a pretty bad game last week against Jalen Ramsey. I mean, nobody has a good game against Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
So he lines up against a pretty shaky Giants secondary. They've been playing better the last couple weeks, but I still think with the way the Giants played run D, I still think the option for Chicago is going to be passing the ball. Allen Robinson still gets peppered with targets, so he's still going to get 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 targets a week. So at least the target share is there for him.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't have the best corner in the league guarding him, I think he's a start every week. So I like him. I also like. Hold
on, just to go back on Allen Robinson here. Just curious because I know you own him. Would you be happier with Chase Daniels in there? I mean, I feel like at this point you almost have to want him. Although I guess there's the rapport with Trubisky, which you may be afraid that...
Yeah, so even when Chase Daniels was in, Allen Robinson's still got his. I just feel so bad for the guy. Look at his quarterbacks that he's had. He had Blake Bortles, and then he goes to Mitch Trubisky.
I thought you were going to say Trubisky. I was like, I don't feel bad for Trubisky.
No, I don't know. I feel bad for Robinson because he could be such a dynamic player, but I think either way he would benefit.
Okay, so it's pretty much the same.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
All right, and then give us some sits here.
So another guy that's kind of been doing well the last couple weeks, Cortland Sutton. Who's Denver playing this week? I just blanked again. I didn't write it down here. Anyway, so I think he's on the downstream here. He has a tough matchup this week, if I can remember correctly.
They're
playing Buffalo. Okay, so Tre'Davious White. I just don't see that matchup going well for him.
Yeah.
Especially with a kind of a shaky QB there in Denver. I just don't see that going well. He's had a couple good weeks in a row, but I don't see that.
He's just so talented. That's the only thing I would be afraid of with sitting him down is, I mean, I was able to watch some of that game last week, and yeah, the quarterback play was bad, but he was so good that it didn't matter. So
yeah.
I
think that's okay against a middle-of-the-road secondary, but against a top-tier secondary like they have in Buffalo, I think it's a little bit of a different story. So,
yep.
And then Cooper Kupp's another guy I don't like this week in particular.
Probably going to have to start him, but...
Yeah, I mean, you drafted him as a receiver 1 probably, or at least a 2. But coming against a Baltimore defense that's really been playing well, they're getting after the quarterback, and Marcus Peters seems to be playing like Marcus Peters of old.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit concerned about basically any Rams receiver.
Yeah. All right, and then a waiver wire quarterback. It's kind of a rough week this week on the waiver wire for if you're trying to stream a quarterback. Baker is out there in some leagues. He was actually out there in our league. I tried to get him. Did you get him?
Nope.
Somebody got him in our league. But he's playing Miami, so that's the smash play. Like if he's on the waiver wire, pick him up and play him. You should be fine with that. It's kind of gross if you're secondary options, but Darnold is kind of the way that I'm leaning. They're playing Oakland. I kind of see that being a high-scoring game, back and forth. The Jets kind of seemed like they got something going. It was the Redskins, but again, this is an Oakland defense who they've been able to get pressure on the quarterback lately, but overall their secondary's been real bad. So I think that he's somebody you can pick up and plug and play, but he's not going to get you like a big week. It's just going to be that placeholder to get you through.
This is another one that I've struggled with this week. Jameis Winston against Atlanta. How do you feel about that one?
Well, that is
on paper, the matchup looks great.
Well, on paper, not the last 2 weeks.
Not the last 2 weeks, yeah.
That's been the issue. Is I don't know what happened in that bye week, but apparently something magical beans were given to all these players, and all of a sudden their defense is fantastic. Like,
is that real though?
Yeah. I mean, they played the Saints and they shut them down. Like, It's not like they've had two cake matchups here. They've actually looked good. And here's the thing with Jameis. Jameis is going to throw interceptions. He's going to fumble the ball. He's going to have turnovers. But he's going to throw for like 350 yards every game, no matter who he plays.
I think that was the thing that was most surprising to me as I was looking back through his last couple of weeks, and he still scores 18, 19, 18, 17,
he's
and he
going
has
to get
5
there.
or 6 turnovers.
Well, that's the thing. That's the upside. So say Atlanta's defense isn't for real and he doesn't turn over the ball, then you have like a 35-point quarterback on your hands when he doesn't turn the ball over.
So, all right, this is a super, super personal. All right, I'm going to be vulnerable
Use this
here.
hour here.
Yeah, you can counsel me. So, Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers or Jameis Winston against Atlanta?
Ooh. I think that San Francisco defense has looked a little more vulnerable, and I just would not be able to forgive myself if I played Jameis Winston over Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers went off.
Hurts, right? Yep.
I think that Green Bay is trying to keep control of that division, and they're just going to go out there and play. I mean, like I said, San Francisco's defense has been beat the last few weeks. They played Arizona last week, and they put up a lot of points.
So when I do my research, I look at trends, 2 or 4 week trends, and it's definitely very different for Atlanta.
Yeah.
And definitely very different for the 49ers from the way the league has started. So I kind of arrived at the same decision. I just can't bench Aaron Rodgers this week. So if you're concerned about that matchup, I think hold strong with
I think
Aaron
they're
Rodgers.
both pretty good options where you're probably going to be upset because you're going to sit one that goes off.
Yeah.
But I think I would lean Aaron Rodgers just because he's been good. He's been pretty good over the last span here. So, all right, and then let's go ahead and get into our turntables.
Well, well, well. How the turntables.
All right, so for this week, this is a segment where we go ahead and tell you guys some players that are trending up or they're trending down, kind of they're going to buck the trends. They're about to turn things around for better or for worse. And I'm going to go the worst route, and Adrian Peterson. He's kind of been a player you've been able to plug in there on bye weeks or even start. He's actually not played too bad. He's kind of surprised people with how old he is and been able to just continue to turn out good rushing efforts. But with Geis coming back, it's just, to me, it's too many cooks in the kitchen. I'm afraid now that this is just going to turn into, I mean, Thompson is probably going to come back at some point here. So then you've got Geis, Peterson, and Thompson, and that's on an offense that is awful. So I
think AP only has 1 touchdown on the year.
Yeah, and so the big thing is, you were relying on the rushing volume and the amount of yards he was getting you. And this is kind of the type of thing that I would be willing to drop him. Like I feel like this is probably the last time that you would have been able to use Adrian Peterson was this past week. Like in fantasy for the rest of the season, unless, Geis goes down, which could elevate him back up to that starting position. I don't see, it's kind of plays off of what you said where they're going to probably want to see what they have in Geis. And Adrian Peterson, to me, is somebody that you could probably just drop. You kind of get ready for the playoffs here. So if you need those bench spots for defenses or quarterbacks or whatever to get you the win, I think you can drop them.
Cool. So I'll go the other direction. I think somebody that's trending up and will continue to do so, at least for the next couple of weeks, is Ryan Griffin. He's had a couple really good weeks back-to-back with the Jets. And if you look at the Jets' schedule coming up, it's kind of juicy. He's got Oakland, Cincinnati, and Miami for the next 3 weeks.
That's a nice schedule.
It's very, very, very nice. So you look at Chris Herndon going out, going on IR. Everybody was telling you to pick up Herndon just because he's dynamic enough, but sure, the volume is there as well. So with Ryan Griffin stepping into that, I think he's startable. I think over the next couple of weeks, he'll be a top 10 tight end. If not top 5 with a couple people out on bye, including Kelsey this week. So if you're looking to fill in for Kelsey and Griffin's still out there on the waivers, which he might not be, just based off of how he's done the last 2 weeks, I would continue with that trend of expecting him to do well. So
yeah, I picked him up. You'll like this. I've never done this before, but I picked him up in a league to flex him. Like I'm going to be flexing him the next few weeks. It's been rough. My roster is depleted on that team. And I picked him up. I'm probably going to be playing him. I'm trying to get into the playoffs, and that playoff push right here for the Oakland, Cincinnati, Miami, that is just a nice schedule.
Yep.
All right, well, that's what we got for you guys this week. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, hopefully, we'll have Chris back here because I do not enjoy this hosting part.
And I am no fill-in.
All right, we'll see you guys.